Cody, this morning, you and I are going to be doing the show without Ole. Unfortunately, there's a lot going on in Spain that we're going to talk about. How you feeling this morning?
Oh, I'm not doing too good. I was traveling last night. We're in a big winter storm here in Colorado. All my old combat injuries are hurting, so I'll try to do my best. I'm just waiting for a second surgery, and I'll try to do the best I can.
Yeah. I mean, that's all we can ever ask for, right? I want to remind people at the outset here that they can support Cody by going to Ole's webpage, lightonconspiracies.com. In the shop, you can purchase Cody's book, Choosing the Light, in which he reveals the dark secrets of the Oklahoma City bombing. Everybody's seen our shows lots of times, Cody. They know that you've been involved in a lot of clandestine operations around the world. You became a whistleblower, came forward to tell everybody about what's going on. The biggest news that's not in the news is this laptop from Hunter Biden. What do you think about that whole thing?
Well, I tell you what, Jason, I really don't know what to make of it. The first thing that hit me when I heard about it, when it first broke the civilian news out here, was, the timing of it right before this election. And it involves the son of the ex-vice president of the United States now running for president. Now, I know a friend of mine that was in military intelligence in Iraq, he actually met Beau Biden over there. They were close to those burn pits. Some of the burn pits, they were burning Russian hazmat suits that had sarin on them, the nerve gas sarin. That's a trimethylethylthiocholine nerve gas that Saddam had been stockpiling, and the cyclosarin nerve gas, too. That's a variation of it. But, yeah, he told me that he actually handled Beau's medical records over there, and he was worried about the troops breathing that stuff because when they had those big burn pits, Jason, that smoke would go up in the air and then it'd fall down somewhere. Right. And he was worried about our troops getting it, and Beau was one of them. And he said he went into Beau Biden's tent there when there was actual smoke. When they pulled the flap back, there was some of this toxic smoke. Wow. And he warned everyone. His higher-ups told him, don't worry about it, because there was a mass cover-up later about the Gulf War syndrome. But anyway, so he said that his personal opinion was that Beau Biden had died, from that brain cancer, and that it was probably related to what all went on in Iraq. But like we said, there was a big cover-up going on. So I feel sorry for the Bidens. I feel sorry for Joe Biden and his family for the loss of a son. I wouldn't wish that on anybody, regardless of the circumstances. But the thing with Hunter, it's like it seems like Joe Biden transferred, all of his loss from that other son over to Hunter, and he's just like overly protected. I mean, if you lost a son, wouldn't you want to take good care of your other son and do good natural for him? So I don't know what to think about this laptop thing. Some people say, well, it's just a smear campaign and the timing of it's bad. And there's a lot of holes in the story, like this computer guy being blind. How can a guy run a computer shop being blind? That would be tough. Plus, how could you rely on an eyewitness when he can't see? I mean, there's just some holes in it, and I don't know what to think of it. I really don't. It could be drummed up as a political ploy for the Republicans, to get some votes right before the election. But there may be some meat to it, Jason, where there's smoke, a lot of times there is some fire.
Yeah, and it certainly seems like the evidence that's coming out from the laptop is legitimate. We saw this guy, he's a retired Navy, I'm not sure what his rank was, but Tony Bobulinski, who was a business associate of Hunter Biden. It seems like the Washington Post and other deep state Mockingbird news outlets are trying to smear Tony Bobulinski, which is strange to me because when we see military veterans like Alexander Vindman come forward, he's lauded as a hero, but here we're making fun of the guy who has potentially damaging information against the Bidens.
Right. Yeah, so like you say, where there's smoke, there's some fire. And my source in military intelligence was in the Ukraine. That's one of the places he was stationed.
Ah.
And, he told me that whole thing with Burisma and the Hunter Biden and Joe Biden thing was just crooked as a snake over there. And we all know that the mainstream media here has been trying to protect the Bidens, and at the same time they're attacking everything Donald Trump does. So the media coverage is not fair, regardless of whatever the truth is, and regardless of what party, Democrat or Republican. We try to just be apolitical. And in intelligence work, military intelligence, that's your job, is to just find out the facts to the best of your knowledge. And if you can't find out what the truth is, then you get a probability rating. You say, well, we've done all the human intelligence. We've done all the photographic intelligence. We've done the SIGINT, the signal intelligence. We cross-reference with the NSA or the CIA or military, Army intelligence, whoever will share their files, because there's also a lot of backbiting in between the intelligence businesses, and some of them won't share their files when they could have, and that makes the whole process inefficient. But what you do is you say, well, I've got 80% correctness or 90%. Right. It's a 90% probability that such is happening. But over in the Ukraine, there's a lot of things going on just besides the oil and gas and Burisma. And the American people need to know about, Monsanto, the big corporations, the ag businesses. At stake is, billions and billions of dollars of glyphosate sales, because the Monsanto tried to pressure the EU to allow them to put test farms. You got to remember, Kansas here in America is a breadbasket of the world, they used to call it. We grow so much wheat. But over in the Ukraine, on that side of the world, that's where they grow the wheat.
Right.
And even after Chernobyl, with all that nuclear fallout, and they had to kill a bunch of reindeers because the meat was tainted from eating the grass, but that wheat over there feeds a lot of people. And Monsanto wanted to corner that part of the market. They've already got the market over here in America. And they sell glyphosate. That's one of their big patented things. They make lots of money on that. So they wanted to get the GMO wheat that requires the glyphosate for insect control. They wanted that market. And the EU was wishy-washy, and Vladimir Putin was telling them, no, we're not even going to buy any wheat from you at all if it's that GMO stuff, because he's totally against it. So the pressure that the Soviets were putting on the EU, they told Monsanto, no, we're not going to let this happen. So Monsanto's next ploy was, we're going to put little test farms in there just to test it. Well, Monsanto knows that when their wheat in their test things will cross-pollinate with the normal wheat that's not GMO. And over a period of time, those test farms would be seed pods to infect the whole of the Ukrainian wheat business.
Through the natural process of
a lot
the wheat spreading.
Of glyphosate sales.
Right.
And everybody makes money. DuPont Chemical, Dow Chemical, the big ag businesses, all the spraying people that have to sell, tractors and spraying apparatus to spray all the glyphosate and everything. See, so underneath the Burisma scandal with Hunter Biden and Joe Biden is also this big Monsanto agribusiness multinational corporation thing, and they're putting a lot of pressure. And they got the EU to finally buck on or say, all right, we'll put a few test farms in there. And so at stake is the Russian wheat market. The Russians told them, we won't buy a bunch of that if you start spraying glyphosate on it. So we don't hear about this stuff over the American news. And my buddy that was over there in Ukraine was telling me about all this. He said it's not just the oil. It's deals with water and food and wheat and other things. So yeah, there's political scandals here in America, and I do believe that Joe and Hunter Biden were up to some shenanigans regarding the Burisma, and Joe Biden specifically pressuring one of the prosecutors to drop an investigation on Burisma board where his son was installed with no experience, by the way. He's not a oil and gas guy. And so,
but beyond that, he's a crackhead. I mean, to what extent would anybody put a drug addict into a sensitive international operation? It would never be done.
Well, like I said, put yourself in Joe Biden's position. I mean, it's hard to do, but he lost his son in Iraq. He died of that weird brain cancer, and we think that it was probably from all those toxins and all that stuff they were covering up. So Joe was quiet, and they buried their son. It's a terrible thing, but now he's got another son, and his son Hunter may not be perfect. He might be a drug head or whatever, but he's got to help his son. If he's, he lost his other one. So,
well, let me ask you this, Cody. Let me ask you this, because this kind of touches on what you wrote about in your book, because, a lot of people don't know the secrets of the Oklahoma City bombing. You've told us on previous shows that there were medical records and a lot of information in the building pertaining to the Gulf War syndrome, which in part was caused by some of these burn pits. Separately, I've interviewed Gregory Lovett, the director of Delay, Deny, Hope You Die, which is a documentary about a lot of the U.S. servicemen and women who've been affected by this Gulf War syndrome, the weird cancers that, oncologists had never seen before that were caused, they believe, by some of the chemicals in the burn pits and the exposure to depleted uranium and all that. So we've got like scandal upon scandal upon scandal that's being covered up. And it would appear that Joe Biden is deeply embedded in that kind of scandal, sandcastle. I've named today's episode, Are U.S. Citizens Targets in a Covert Counterintelligence Operation? Now, when you talk about stuff like Monsanto trying to get glyphosate into Ukraine to permeate the food supply of Russia, to what extent are covert intelligence operations playing a role in this stuff?
Well, I retired in March of 1995. Okay, that was right before I got offered to bomb the Murrah building there in October of 94. And I'd already planned my retirement. So I did not know when I turned that job down when that job was going to go off, if ever. And I found out later on April 19th, 95, that's when it happened. But in March, I retired. I had a retirement party. We had some of the CIA guys show up, and we had a good thing, and I was going to leave the country. They told me, you know too much, you just need to leave the country, and I didn't. Mm-hmm. But anyway, I've been out of the loop, for a while. And so what's going on right now with intelligence officers, this is 2020, and that was 25 years ago. So the people I know that we used to get really good intel, and those people are all either dead or expatted out of the country. So I'm out of the loop on it a little bit, and I don't know what's going on right now. I can surmise and give opinions, but I think there is major intelligence and counterintelligence going on. Like in the Ukraine, they have that Burisma company that it controls large fields of oil and gas. There's also the Leviathan field out there around Israel and the West Bank. There's a big oil field there. There's oil fields all around the world. When I was a civilian, my cover, non-official cover operative, that's what I was, a knock, that was in for Amoco, and I've got degrees in mathematics and physics. I was a geophysicist, so I worked on projects all around the world, offshore China, Saudi Arabia, Beaufort Sea in Alaska, the oil lease stuff in the Gulf of Mexico. So I'm well versed in the oil business, and there are a lot of intelligence operatives in the oil business. British Petroleum, for instance, has several MI6 agents in it, and their front is being a project manager or a driller or whatever. It makes a perfect cover because you get to move around the world. You have a big company behind you, and nobody suspects, what you're really doing. So I would say that in the Ukraine, with all that oil and gas and the huge agribusiness stuff that's at stake with all the wheat and everything, I would say there's definitely intelligence stuff going on. I don't know what it is now, but I'm sure it's going on. I'm sure the Chinese want a stake in whatever chemical market if they're going to spray glyphosate over there. I'm sure the big companies like Halliburton and Schlumberger and British Petroleum and all want their paws on all of the natural gas, all the equipment that's, the pumps and the pipe fitters unions that make all the pipelines, and it's just hundreds and hundreds of billions of dollars at stake. And anytime there's that kind of international oil and gas or international food, big stuff, there's always intelligence operations going on. And that leads me to suspect that Joe Biden and Hunter Biden were actually involved in something, probably under the auspices of the Hillary Clinton State Department, with Barack Obama, because I've talked to people that were at Benghazi, Libya, when that attack came and we lost Chris, our ambassador there.
Yep.
One of the guys I know was in a firefight there, and he told me exactly what happened. And he said that Hillary Clinton and Obama were involved in looting out gold that Gaddafi had. For years, he'd been using his oil revenues to buy gold and also weapons from the Soviet blocs. And then they killed him and took those weapons, and that's what they were funneling to the ISIS fighters, because that was a proxy army for Assad, because Assad would not allow the Saudis to put their pipeline across his country. And the Saudis were putting international pressure on our administrations over here. When you talk about big business, big oil, big ag, our presidents and vice presidents, they're mere puppets in a big shell game. Everyone thinks the president of the United States is a big guy, and he is to one level. But in the international scheme of things, when you're talking big banks, big international finance, big agribusiness, big oil, he's just like a puppet. I mean, regardless of who wins this next election in America, all these big companies and Northrop Grumman and Lockheed Martin and Raytheon, they're all still going to get contracts. They're all still going to be building drones and lasers and pipelines and everything. And it really doesn't matter on the surface who these people are and how they come and go. And at that level, I think they're all involved in intelligence, counterintelligence. They're all corrupt to one degree or another, because you can't take human nature, Jason. Someone might not steal your wallet with $10 in it, but if there's $100 billion at stake,
there's a lot of
smile to
people
your
trying
face
to steal
and steal your wallet.
Exactly. And I want us to focus in a bit on how these intersecting business interests and intelligence operations utilize the mainstream news. And I mean, even some of these smaller things that have cropped up in the past few years, the Daily Beast, I mean, these to me seem like straight out social engineering operations that are posing as news. And I want to talk about that. I do also want to address, Ole was not with us last week. He's doing fine. He's safe. He's in Sweden right now because new lockdowns are spreading across Europe, and it's gotten so bad that Ole has actually left his home in Spain. And
I wanted. Thanks for bringing that up, Jess. I want to address that because right after this show, I'm on call right now. We have a floating time schedule. We've been doing a show in a different town every day. 2 days ago we did Gothenburg, Sweden, and now yesterday it was Stockholm, and today it was sold out, and there's so many people there. We're doing another show in Stockholm here right after this show here. But I did talk to Ole, and to all the listeners out there that might miss him or whatever. Ole's a great guy, but he's under a lot of pressure right now, and he told me. This was 3 days ago, because we're so busy with all these interviews and moving and setting up the equipment and everything, we don't have time to talk a lot. But he said that he had left Spain, and he may not go back because they've had some real serious lockdown stuff going on over there, and they're talking about even making it more draconian. And he said, I might not even go back there. And so he's doing this interview. These interviews over in Sweden, and so they're having a lot of trouble. And he told me, he said, I don't know if I want to go back there or not. I don't want to end up getting arrested. Now, that's what he said. So I don't know the details, because the first thing everybody wants to know is, what's going on, and what did somebody say something, or did the cops mess with you? Because we were doing some shows over there. I can't remember what country. It was Denmark or Finland or somewhere. I think it was Copenhagen. That's where it was. And I was supposed to come on the show, and there was a van load of cops showed up, and they never called me. I was sitting around waiting, and finally I got to talk to Ole, and he says, "Oh yeah, right when you were going to come on, all the van load of cops came in there, and they said some old lady called them, and he said it was a BS excuse, but it was a way to shut the program down." And that conference you went to down in Acapulco there with David Icke and Ole. David Icke had that big setup in Melbourne and Sydney over in Australia. He's fixing to leave Acapulco, Mexico, and fly over there. In 4 hours before he got there, the Australian government canceled his visa, and they had to turn back the tickets and the money they'd spent on getting the auditoriums and everything. So they're doing a lot of things to shut people down, not just the censorship on YouTube and Facebook. Ole told me they were having trouble. They'd try to rent a building to have a little talk. And they'd find out his name, and they'd say, "No, we don't want to reach in the building." And so there's a lot of pushback from the deep state all around the world, to silence the truth. And they took David Icke's YouTube video down and his channel. And you've had all your problems, Jason, and so that's what Ole's fighting a lot of stuff. And I don't know the full story, but he was worried. So we're going to do this show today. And I think it's the last one in the series. But so that's why he's not with us today. They're having a lot of trouble, and they're just trying to get their – because he told me there's lots of people over there, Jason, they're selling out completely standing room only, and there's lots of people wanting to wake up because the Swedish people are being censored just like we are.
Yeah. And I think everybody around the world realizes that this is unusual, and a lot of things about it don't necessarily – makes sense to them. So, people want to hear what Ole has to say. Unfortunately, he's not able to join us today, but you and I will be doing the regular sponsor exclusive show on Patreon and Subscribestar in about 10 minutes. People can join us there. People who want to get regular updates about Ole can visit his website at lightonconspiracies.com. He's got some videos going up there that'll keep people abreast of what's happening in Spain. I know Kim has posted a video here on their Sofa Talk series. It's hard to believe they're up to day 296. We're approaching 1 year of this new so-called normal where everybody is locked in their house, and basically it's a legitimate fear that Ole might be arrested. I mean, the mere act of getting 10 people together is enough to get you arrested these days. But I also want to remind people that lightonconspiracies.com is the place to go to purchase Cody's book, Choosing the Light. He's going to reveal all the secrets, the dark secrets of the Oklahoma City bombing. And we're going to focus, I think, on this Chinese website that has emerged over the weekend. And I realize you haven't had a lot of time to review it. I want to ask you some questions, Cody, about just your professional opinion about how that plays into everything that's happening. Of course, we're just days away from the U.S. presidential election. In the last couple minutes here, Cody, give me an idea of what you think about the timing. I mean, you said that this computer repair guy, he's legally blind. A lot of people in the comments pointed out that with glasses and stuff, his vision correction, of course he can see, but that's, he's got bad eyesight. He's able to have vision correction to fix the computers. I agree with you. The timing is weird. And we haven't heard anything from this Bobulinski guy who has the real evidence.
Yeah, that's the whole question. Where's the beef? Now, the FBI and DOJ, if they're going to prosecute a case or they've turned it over to the grand jury to get an indictment, you have to have sufficient evidence presented to a grand jury to get a criminal indictment or a civil indictment for that matter. But the thing is a lot of times they won't put any evidence out in public because they don't want to obscure a future prosecutorial mechanism that they're going to use. Okay. In other words, they may sit on it. They may say, yeah, we have the evidence, and everyone goes, okay, let's see it. And because we've all been lied to so many times by so many things, you have to see the evidence for yourself. Well, they're not going to do that if they're going to plan on prosecuting. But here's the question. Are they waiting to see if Joe Biden wins the election?
Right.
And then and the Trump holdouts that are in the DOJ will go ahead and file a case on Hunter? Or do they not have sufficient evidence to a legal standard to get a grand jury indictment, and it's all BS? It's just smoke and mirrors.
Well,
We
what
really
about the
don't know what
possibility?
they're doing.
Right. And Cody, what about the possibility that the people in the DOJ continue to cover for Joe Biden? We'll talk about that in just 5 minutes.
That's another possibility. See, it could be basically one of those three things. Either they're waiting for a future prosecution. That's why the evidence hasn't come out. Or they don't really have much evidence, just like that Russian collusion stuff with Trump. That never panned out for them. There was never any criminal prosecutions.
But that was all over the news, despite having no evidence. And in contrast here, there seems to be a lot of evidence, but not that much news at all. Let me pause you right there, Cody, because we're about to transition over to our sponsor-exclusive segment, and people can join us for the rest of the conversation on patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth and subscribestar.com/crowdsourcethetruth. Don't forget to visit lightonconspiracies.com. Purchase the book, Dark Secrets of the Oklahoma City Bombing, Choosing the Light. Cody Snodgres has written that book, and he'll be joining me